The grand chamber of the Nexus station had never been so full. Ambassador Thalvin looked across the massive circular room and counted representatives from 47 different species. Every seat was taken. Some delegates even stood along the walls, their various forms casting strange shadows under the artificial lights. Thalvin's 4 crystalline arms moved in a gesture of frustration. His species, the Calaxians, had led the Galactic Council for 3,000 years. In all that time, he had never seen anything like this. The newest species discovered by the Council had done the impossible. They had said no, not just once. 3 times now. 3 full cycles of attempted contact, and the humans refused to even talk. "This is unprecedented," Thalvin announced to the assembled council. His voice echoed through the chamber. "We have sent gifts. We have sent messages of peace. We have sent our best diplomats. The humans send everything back, unopened, untouched." Vrex, the Thurian military advisor, rose from his seat. His reptilian scales caught the light as he moved. "Perhaps they are simply afraid," he said. "New species often fear what they do not understand." "Give them time." "Time?" Another delegate spoke up, a floating being made of organized gas particles. "We gave them time. 18 months since first contact. They built weapons instead of reaching out their hands." Thalvin activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images appeared in the air, showing the human home system. The planet they called Earth hung in space, blue and green and beautiful, but around it new structures appeared in the recordings. Military stations, defense platforms, warships. "Look at what they have done," Thalvin said. "In just 18 months they have militarized their entire star system. They detected our scout ships and instead of curiosity, they chose preparation for war." The recordings showed more. Human ships patrolled the edges of their system. Automated defense weapons pointed outward into space. Communication buoys sent by the Council drifted past these defenses, ignored and unwanted. "What do they say?" asked Kethral, an ancient historian of the Vornathi species. Her voice was old and tired, but her eyes were sharp. She had seen 300 species join the Council in her long life. "When they refuse us, what words do they use?" Thalvin brought up another display. The message was simple. Too simple. "Thank you for your interest. Humanity respectfully declines contact at this time." "That is all?" Kethral asked. "No explanation? No reasoning?" "That is all," Thalvin confirmed. "Every time. The same message, polite, brief, final." Vrex stood again. "Then we must assume they are hostile. My scouts report that human military expansion continues. They build more ships every day. They fortify every moon and asteroid in their system. This is not the behavior of a peaceful species." "Or," suggested a small, furry delegate from the Pixan species, "this is the behavior of a very frightened species that does not trust us." Thalvin considered this. The Council had always prided itself on peaceful expansion. For 10,000 years they had brought species together, created trade, ended wars, built a galactic civilization based on cooperation, but always new species had wanted to join. The benefits were obvious: technology, protection, knowledge, resources. Why would anyone refuse? "I propose we send a formal delegation," Thalvin said. "Not scouts, not messages. A proper fleet. Enough ships to show our power, but not enough to threaten. We will approach their world directly and demand an audience." "Demand?" Kethral's ancient voice held warning. "Is that wise? To demand from those who have already refused? What choice do we have?" Thalvin spread his forearms wide. "If we allow one species to refuse the Council, others may follow. Our unity could fracture. 10,000 years of peace could end because we were too timid to act." The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for patience. Others wanted immediate action. A few suggested economic pressure. The humans would need trade eventually. They could be convinced through practical needs rather than military presence. But in the end, the vote was clear. A Council fleet would approach Earth directly. 200 ships. Enough to impress. Enough to show the humans that the Council was serious. What none of them knew was that their entire debate had been watched. High above the Nexus station, invisible to all their sensors, a human observation post hung in space. Commander Jiwoo sat in the dark control room, watching everything through their advanced stealth technology. Her fingers moved across her console, recording every word. "They voted to come here," she said quietly into her communication device. "Send the report to Earth Command. The Council is done asking. They are coming whether we want them or not. Back on Earth in the capital city, Dr. Hana received the message. She was the lead xenobiologist on the first contact response team. She had been studying the council species for months, learning everything she could from their public broadcasts and salvage technology. She walked quickly through the government building until she reached the secure conference room. Inside, military leaders and government officials waited. Admiral Daehyun Park looked up as she entered. "Well?" he asked. "The council voted," Hana said. "A fleet of 200 ships will enter Sol system within the week. They are coming to demand we join them." Minister Bora Lee, the Secretary of External Affairs, smiled grimly. "Then they will get their answer. The same answer we have given them before. But this time they will see that we mean it. Are we ready?" Admiral Daehyun asked. "Ready?" Hana pulled up a display showing the Sol system. Every planet, every moon, every strategic point was marked with human defenses. "We have been ready since we first heard their signals 15 years ago. We have been preparing for this moment since we decoded that ancient probe and learned what the Council really is." Minister Bora stood. "The Council thinks we are afraid. They think we are primitive. They think we will see their fleet and surrender our sovereignty out of awe or fear. They are about to learn something about humanity." "What is that?" asked a young officer. "That when we say no," Minister Bora said quietly, "we mean no." Commander Ji-woo watched from her hidden post as the Council fleet began to assemble. 200 ships of various designs, each belonging to a different member species. They looked impressive. They looked powerful. They looked like they expected to be obeyed. She thought about her planet hidden behind its defenses. She thought about the choice humanity had made. To stand alone rather than kneel together. To refuse the easy path of joining a system they did not trust. The Council fleet began to move, heading toward the coordinates of Earth's star system. Ji-woo sent one final message home. "They are coming. Stay strong. Remember why we chose this path." And deep in the Sol system, humanity prepared to show the galaxy something it had never seen before. A species that would rather stand alone in the dark than join a light they did not believe in. The answer would still be no. But this time, the Council would understand that humanity had the strength to enforce that answer. The great game was about to begin. The Council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 200 ships appeared in the darkness of space, their running lights creating a constellation of artificial stars. Ambassador Thalvin stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the tactical display with satisfaction. "Begin broadcasting peace messages on all frequencies," he ordered. "Let the humans know we come as friends." The communications officer began transmitting. Messages of greeting, offers of trade, promises of protection and knowledge. Everything the Council had used successfully with 300 other species. The response from Earth was immediate and shocking. Complete silence. Every human communication signal in the system went dark. Radio transmissions stopped. Data streams ended. The busy chatter of a technological civilization simply vanished. It was as if the entire human species had decided to stop talking at the exact same moment. "What is happening?" Thalvin demanded. Then the sensors started screaming alerts. All around the Council fleet, space itself seemed to change. New contacts appeared on the tactical display. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. Defense platforms that had been invisible moments before suddenly activated, their weapons tracking the Council ships. "Where did they come from?" Freck shouted from his station. The military advisor looked at the display in disbelief. "These were not here. We scanned this system. It was empty." But it was not empty. Not anymore. Admiral Daehyun Park sat in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface. He watched the Council fleet on his displays and allowed himself a small smile. The stealth technology had worked perfectly. Every defense platform, every weapon system, every military installation had been hidden until the moment of activation. "How many ships do they count?" he asked. "Their sensors are detecting 2,000 defense platforms," his tactical officer reported, "and our main fleet is moving into position now." On the tactical display, the human defense fleet appeared. Ships emerged from behind moons and asteroids where they had been waiting. They came from the shadow of planets. They rose from hidden stations on the surface of Mercury and Mars. Within minutes, the Council fleet was surrounded by a force 10 times its size. Admiral Daehyun had fought in the resource wars. The terrible conflicts that had nearly destroyed humanity 50 years ago. He had learned hard lessons about preparation and strength. Earth had been unified by those wars. They had learned to work together, and when they detected the first alien signals all those years ago, they had made a choice: prepare, build, defend. Never again would humanity be caught weak and unprepared. The Council fleet stopped moving. Thalvin stared at the tactical display, trying to understand what he was seeing. This was impossible. Earth was supposed to be a young civilization. They had only just developed basic space travel when the Council first detected them. How could they have built all this? Move the fleet to Jupiter, he ordered finally. We will establish a position there and wait. Surely they will talk to us now. But as the Council fleet moved deeper into the system, they saw more. Military stations orbited every major planet. Shipyards the size of moons produced new vessels. Orbital fortresses bristled with weapons. The humans had not just built a defense force, they had built an empire of war in their own system. Historian Kethral studied the data in her quarters on one of the Council ships. She was old. She had seen many things, but this troubled her deeply. She accessed the ancient archives, looking through records that few still remembered. There, in the oldest files, a derelict probe the Council had lost in this region of space decades ago. It had contained historical records, cultural data, information about how the Council operated. Kethral's blood went cold. Had the humans found that probe? Had they learned about the Council before the Council learned about them? If so, what had they seen in those records? She thought about the truth that most Council members preferred to forget. That in 10,000 years, every species had joined. Every single one. Those who refused at first were eventually convinced. Through economic pressure, through subtle manipulation, through showing them that independence was harder than cooperation. No species had ever maintained their refusal. Until now. Minister Bora Lee stood before the Global Assembly on Earth. Representatives from every nation watched as she spoke. The chamber was silent, every person understanding the weight of this moment. The Council fleet waits at Jupiter, she said. They expect us to negotiate. They expect us to see their numbers and feel fear. They expect us to realize we cannot stand alone and accept their offer. She paused, looking at the faces around her. But we know the truth. We found their probe 30 years ago. We decoded their records. We learned that the Council does not accept refusal. Species that try to remain independent find their trade blocked, their colonies isolated, their governments infiltrated with Council advisors. Slowly, inevitably, they are absorbed, not conquered. Never that, but managed, guided, controlled. The assembly remained quiet. They had all seen the evidence. The pattern was clear in the historical records. The Council maintained its unity by ensuring no one could survive outside it. We will not become another client state, Minister Bora said firmly. We will not trade our freedom for their protection. We will not join a system built on coercion disguised as cooperation. Our answer remains no. Back in the Sol system, a small Council ship attempted to reach Mars. It was a scout vessel carrying only a handful of crew members. They thought perhaps a smaller approach would seem less threatening. The ship never reached Mars. Human defense systems detected it. Warning shots were fired. When the Council ship did not retreat, an electromagnetic pulse weapon disabled it. The vessel went dark, tumbling in space. Within hours, a human recovery ship arrived. The Council crew was taken aboard. They were not harmed. In fact, they were treated well. Given food, medical attention, comfortable quarters, but they were also shown things that made them question everything they knew. The human ship took them on a tour. They saw the shipyards producing vessels with faster-than-light drives more advanced than anything the Council used. They saw weapons based on quantum principles that the Council had barely begun to research. They saw Venus, the hot poisonous planet, being slowly terraformed. The process was already 40% complete. One of the human officers, a young woman named Ye Jin, spoke to them kindly. We are not primitive, she said. We are not afraid. We simply choose to remain independent. Is that so hard to understand? The Council crew members had no answer. They had been taught that all species wanted to join, that the benefits were so obvious that refusal was irrational. But looking at human technology, at their unified purpose, at their strength, they began to wonder. After 3 days, the Council crew was released. Their ship was repaired and given fuel. They were sent back to the fleet at Jupiter with a recorded message from Minister Bo-Ra. Thalvin played the message for his senior staff. Minister Bo-Ra's face appeared in the holographic display. She looked calm, confident. "Ambassador Thalvin," she said, "we appreciate your interest in humanity. We appreciate the offer to join your council. But our answer is no. Not because we are afraid, not because we are hostile, but because we choose independence. We choose to walk our own path among the stars. We hope you can respect that choice. If not, then you will learn that we have the strength to enforce it." This conversation is over. The message ended. Thalvin stood in silence. Around him, his staff waited for orders. What could they do? The humans had more ships, better technology, complete unity of purpose, and they had been preparing for this confrontation for decades while the Council had been blind to their true capabilities. Vrex spoke first. "This changes everything. If we allow this, other species will question their membership. Our unity could fracture. Then what do you suggest?" Thalvin asked. "War. Against a species that has shown they can match us technologically? We came to offer peace. We came to offer cooperation. They showed us they do not need what we offer." Back on Earth, Commander Jiwoo received reports that the Council fleet remained at Jupiter but made no further moves. They were waiting, thinking, trying to understand how their certain success had become uncertain failure. She looked out at the stars from her observation post. Humanity had taken a huge risk. They had revealed their strength. They had shown the Council that Earth could not be pressured or intimidated. But what would happen now? Would the Council accept defeat? Or would this be the beginning of something much larger? Only time would tell. But for now, humanity had done the impossible. They had looked at the greatest power in the galaxy and said no, and they had made it stick. The released Council crew returned to the fleet at Jupiter, and their report changed everything. Ambassador Thalvin called an emergency meeting of all ship captains and senior delegates. The grand conference room on the flagship was crowded and tense. "Let me understand this correctly," said General Court, a high-ranking military officer from the Dramian species. His armored form towered over most others in the room. "The humans have technology superior to ours. They are terraforming a planet. Their weapons are more advanced than what we possess." The rescued crew members nodded. One of them, a young navigator, spoke up. "They showed us everything. They wanted us to know. They wanted us to report back exactly what we saw. It was a message." "What message?" Thalvin asked quietly. "That we cannot force them. That we cannot intimidate them. That they are ready for anything we might try." The room erupted in argument. Some delegates insisted this had to be a trick. Others demanded immediate military action. A few suggested retreat. The unity of purpose that had brought the fleet here was crumbling. Vrex stood and called for order. "We cannot allow this. If humanity is permitted to refuse the Council, others will follow. Our entire civilization is built on unity. Without it, we collapse into chaos." Merchant Lord Quix, a wealthy trader from the Batarian species, laughed at this. His species were natural business people, and he saw something others missed. Unity built on force is not unity at all. It is control. And if the humans can offer better trade deals than the Council, why should they join? Better trade deals? General Court's voice was dangerous. "You speak of trade while they threaten our entire way of life." "I speak of reality," Quix replied. "The humans have resources, technology. They will trade with whoever offers fair terms. The Council has never had to offer fair terms before because new species had no choice. Now we have competition." This sparked another wave of arguments. The meeting continued for hours with no resolution. Finally, 3 distinct factions emerged. The diplomatic faction, led by Thalvin, wanted to keep trying peaceful contact. The economic faction, led by Quix, wanted to establish trade relationships whether the humans joined or not. And the military faction, led by General Court, wanted to use force to end this challenge to Council authority. While the Council argued, something unexpected happened on Earth. A young human officer named Yejin made a decision that would change everything. She had been thinking about the Council crew she had helped care for. They were not monsters. They were just people from different worlds following orders, believing they were doing good. She used a secure channel to send a message to one of the younger Council members she had met. His name was Ren, an intern who had been part of the captured crew. Her message was simple: "We need to talk, not government to government." just person to person. Will you listen? Ren received the message in secret. He knew he should report it to his superiors. But he was curious. He had been impressed by the humans during his brief captivity. They had treated him well, shown him respect, so he agreed to a private communication channel. Why do you refuse us? Ren asked. The council offers so much: protection, knowledge, trade. Why stand alone? Yejin took a deep breath. Because we have seen what happens to species that join. We found one of your old probes. We decoded the historical records. We learned the truth. What truth? That the council does not accept independence. Every species that tried to remain outside has been pressured until they joined. Economic sanctions, political interference, social engineering. Not war, but control nonetheless. We refuse to be controlled. Ren was silent for a long moment. You think we are tyrants? No, Yejin said carefully. I think you started as something good and became something else over thousands of years. I think you forgot that real cooperation must be voluntary. I think you have convinced yourselves that forced unity is the same as chosen unity. Back on Earth, engineer Tae-min Cho was working on something that would shock the Council even more. He was the designer of Earth's rapid deployment defense systems, the technology that had allowed humanity to hide thousands of military installations until the moment of activation. But his current project was even more impressive. He stood in a secure facility, watching as the final test completed on humanity's greatest secret. Experimental faster-than-light drives that could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months. Colony ships already built and ready to launch. Everything needed to expand beyond the Sol system. Admiral Daehyun Park entered the facility and stood beside Tae-min. Are we ready? The Admiral asked. Ready? Tae-min smiled. Admiral, we have been ready for 2 years. We have already sent colony ships to 3 star systems beyond Council space. Those colonies are established and growing. Humanity is no longer confined to one system. Even if the Council destroys Earth tomorrow, humanity will survive and spread. This was the final piece of humanity's strategy. They had not just defended their home. They had already begun expanding outward, establishing new worlds in regions the Council did not control. Humanity was becoming a multi-system civilization, while the Council still thought they were trapped in Sol. Minister Bo-Ra Lee decided it was time to reveal this truth. She prepared a broadcast that would be sent to every Council ship and every Council world. The message would shake the galaxy. People of the Galactic Council, her message began. You came to our system expecting us to join you. You expected us to be grateful for your offer. You expected us to surrender our independence for your protection, but we have something to show you. The broadcast included images, real-time footage from 3 star systems, each dozens of light years from Earth, human colonies, cities being built, farms growing food under alien suns, children playing on worlds that had never known intelligent life before. We are not trapped in our home system, Minister Bo-Ra continued. We are already spreading among the stars, on our terms. Under our own authority, we trade with independent species you have never contacted. We explore regions you have never reached. We are building our own civilization and we do not need your permission. Then came the part that would hurt the Council most. Evidence. Proof of Council manipulation over the centuries. Records from the old probe showing how species that resisted membership were slowly pressured into compliance. Economic data showing how the Council controlled trade to make independence impossible. Political documents revealing how Council advisors infiltrated governments to guide them toward membership. This is why we say no, Minister Bo-Ra said. Not because we hate you, not because we fear you, but because we refuse to be controlled. We call on all species in the galaxy to examine their relationship with the Council. Ask yourselves if you joined by choice or by necessity. Ask yourselves if unity through pressure is really unity at all. The broadcast ended. The effect was immediate and devastating. 3 Council species, all minor members who had been among the last to join, announced they were reconsidering their membership status. They did not leave the Council immediately, but they declared observer status, reducing their participation and obligations. Historian Cathral watched this unfold and felt something she had not felt in centuries: hope. She accessed the ancient records from the founding of the Council 10,000 years ago. Back then, the Council had been a true alliance of equals. Species joined because they wanted to, not because they had to. When had that changed? How had they drifted so far from their original purpose? She began to write a document, a historical analysis that would challenge everything the council believed about itself. She sent it to other historians, to philosophers, to anyone who would listen. Her message was simple: the humans were right. The council had become the very thing it was created to prevent. General Court saw the crisis growing and made a desperate move. He attempted a military coup, trying to seize control of the council fleet and force a confrontation with humanity. If Earth could be conquered, he argued, the other species would fall in line. Strength was the only language some understood, but the coup failed. Too many species had been shaken by the human revelations. Too many were questioning their own membership. The moderate species rallied together and arrested Court and his supporters. The military faction collapsed. Thalvin sat alone in his quarters, watching his entire world fall apart. The council was fracturing. Species were questioning everything. Some talked about leaving. Others demanded reforms. The unity that had lasted 10,000 years was breaking, and it had all started because one species said no. He thought about everything he had believed. That the council was good. That unity was necessary. That all species benefited from membership. Had it all been a lie? Or had it been true once but become corrupted over time? Commander Jiwoo watched from her observation post as the council fleet began to withdraw from Jupiter. They were not retreating to attack. They were retreating to survive. The fleet was coming apart as different factions pulled in different directions. Humanity had not fired a single shot in anger. They had not needed to. They had simply stood firm, revealed the truth, and watched as the galaxy's greatest power structure began to crumble under the weight of its own contradictions. But this was not the end. It was the beginning of something new. 6 months had passed since the Council fleet withdrew from the Sol system. In that time, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The political structure that had maintained stability for 10,000 years was unraveling, and humanity had still not fired a single shot. Ambassador Thalvin stood in what remained of the council chambers on Nexus Station. The room felt empty now. Many seats were vacant. 7 species had formally declared observer status, reducing their participation to the bare minimum. Another dozen were openly debating whether to follow. The carefully maintained facade of unity had cracked wide open. "This is a disaster," muttered one of the remaining delegates. "How did we let this happen?" Thalvin knew the answer. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed that any species would jump at the chance to join the galaxy's premier civilization. They had been wrong, and that mistake had exposed truths that many species had preferred to ignore. The economic situation was even worse. Merchant Lord Quix had not waited for permission. He had established direct trade relationships with human corporations. Technology exchanges, resource deals, cultural exchanges. The humans offered fair terms and respected the sovereignty of their trading partners. Other independent traders quickly followed his example. Within months, a parallel economy had formed. Species that felt trapped by council trade regulations began dealing with humans instead. The council's economic leverage, which had always been its strongest tool for maintaining unity, was disappearing. On Earth, President Subin Kang prepared for the most important speech of her life. She was the leader of the unified government, the position created after humanity finally abandoned separate nations in favor of a single world authority. It had taken the resource wars and the threat of alien contact to unite humanity, but they had done it. Now she would speak to the entire galaxy. The broadcast went out on every frequency. Every species with radio telescopes could receive it. The message was transmitted in 47 different languages, each one corresponding to a council member species. "People of the galaxy," President Kang began. Her voice was calm and measured. 6 months ago, humanity refused to join the Galactic Council. That refusal has caused controversy and conflict. Some see us as arrogant, others see us as a threat. I am here to explain our position clearly. She paused, letting her words be translated and transmitted. We do not seek conflict. We do not desire eternal isolation. We simply refuse to join a system built on coercion disguised as cooperation. The Council claims to offer voluntary membership, but the reality is different. Species that refuse find themselves economically isolated, politically pressured, and socially marginalized until they have no choice but to join. That is not voluntary. That is control. Images appeared behind her. Documentation, evidence, the kind of systematic proof that could not be easily dismissed. We have been contacted by representatives from 19 different species. All of them describe similar experiences: pressure to join, difficulty maintaining independence. The message is always the same: join us or struggle alone. We refuse to accept those terms, and we call on the Council to reform itself. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Reform yourselves. Return to your original principles. Make membership truly voluntary. Respect the sovereignty of all species, whether they join you or not. Do this and humanity will gladly work with you as equals. Refuse and we will continue to build our own path among the stars. The choice is yours. The broadcast ended. The reaction across the galaxy was immediate and chaotic. Philosopher Zelmoth, a descendant of one of the Council's original founders, watched the human broadcast from his study on the ancient world of Caloria. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. He had spent centuries studying the Council's history, and he knew President Kang was right. He accessed the most ancient records, files that few bothered to read anymore. The original founding documents of the Council, the speeches given by the first ambassadors, the principles they had established after the devastating wars that had nearly destroyed this region of space. The Council had been created as a voluntary alliance, a way for species to cooperate without surrendering their independence. Membership was supposed to be a privilege, not an obligation. When had that changed? Zelmoth traced the evolution carefully. It had been gradual, small compromises, practical decisions, the slow drift from principle to expediency. By the time most species joined, the Council had become something very different from what its founders intended. But because it happened slowly, over thousands of years, no one noticed, or those who noticed were ignored. Zelmoth began writing. He had connections, influence. Other philosophers and historians listened to him. He sent his analysis to hundreds of key figures across the galaxy. His conclusion was devastating. Humanity was right, and the Council had lost its way. General Court's attempted coup had failed, but it had revealed something important. There were many in the Council who saw humanity's refusal as an existential threat. Not because humans were dangerous, but because they were successful. If humanity could thrive outside the Council, it proved that membership was not necessary. That was the real danger. The idea that species could choose their own path. 3 more species declared observer status. The wave was spreading. Dr. Hanna, Earth's lead xenobiologist, was contacted by a research team from the Vornathi species. They were suffering from a genetic plague that had been slowly killing them for generations. Council scientists had made little progress in finding a cure. The Vornathi were desperate enough to reach out to humanity for help. "We will help you," Dr. Hanna told them simply. "Not because we want something from you. Not because we expect you to join us or support us politically, but because it is the right thing to do. Send us your data. We will work on it." This simple act of compassion without strings attached shocked many Council species. They were used to aid coming with conditions, with expectations, with political leverage. Humanity offered help and asked for nothing in return. Within weeks, human scientists working with Vornathi researchers had made more progress on the genetic plague than Council scientists had achieved in decades. A potential treatment emerged. Hope began to replace despair. Admiral Dae-hyun Park received intelligence reports about increasing tension within Council space. Some species were talking about leaving entirely. Others wanted to force reforms. The Council was consuming itself with internal debate while its authority crumbled. "Should we do something?" asked one of his junior officers. "Like what?" Dae-hyun replied. "We made our choice. We stood firm. Now the galaxy must make its choice. We cannot force them to reform any more than they could force us to join." But humanity was not idle. Captain Hyun-woo commanded Earth's first true diplomatic mission. Not a military force, not a trade delegation. A diplomatic ship carrying ambassadors, scientists, artists, and teachers. Their mission was to visit independent species that had never joined the Council, to offer friendship and cooperation on equal terms. The results were remarkable. Species that had spent centuries fearing Council expansion welcomed human contact. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges began. Scientific cooperation flourished. Humanity was building its own network of relationships. and every success made the Council's insistence on unity through membership look more outdated. Minister Bora Lee watched these developments with satisfaction, but also concern. They had achieved their goal of refusing Council membership, but they had also triggered a galactic crisis. The old order was collapsing. What would replace it? She called a meeting of Earth's leadership. President Kang, Admiral Dai-hyun, Dr. Hana, Engineer Taemin, and others gathered to discuss the future. We broke it, Minister Bora said simply. The Council structure is falling apart. Species are leaving or demanding reforms. The question is, what comes next? Do we stand aside and let them figure it out, or do we help build something new? President Kang considered carefully. We refuse to join a broken system, but I think we have a responsibility to help create something better, not to lead it, not to control it, but to participate in building a truly voluntary alliance of equals. How? Asked Admiral Dae-hyun. We wait, President Kang said. We let the Council complete its crisis. Let them decide if they want to reform or collapse entirely. When they are ready to start over, to build something based on true voluntary cooperation, then we offer to help, as equals. Not as conquerors or saviors, but as partners. 3 more species left the Council completely. The exodus was accelerating. Ambassador Thalvin knew something had to be done. He called for a complete dissolution of the current Council structure and a constitutional convention to create something new. Something based on the principles humanity had demanded. The vote was close, but it passed. The Galactic Council, as it had existed for 10,000 years, would end. Something new would be born from its ashes, and humanity would be invited to help shape it. Commander Jiwoo received the message from Nexus Station, an invitation, not a demand, not an expectation, a simple request. Would humanity be willing to send representatives to help design a new galactic organization based on true voluntary cooperation? She forwarded the message to Earth with a simple note. They are finally ready to listen. 1 year had passed since humanity first refused contact with the Galactic Council. The old council no longer existed. In its place stood something new, something different, something that had been built from the ruins of the old order with human help. They called it the Galactic Concordat. Captain Hyun-woo stood at the airlock of his ship, preparing to step onto the new Concordat headquarters. It was not Nexus Station anymore. That had been dismantled, too symbolic of the old ways. Instead, the meeting place was a rebuilt station called Unity Hall, located in neutral space claimed by no species. He wore the uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Behind him stood a small team, scientists, cultural experts, legal specialists. They were humanity's first official representatives to the galaxy, and they carried a heavy responsibility. Ambassador Thalvin waited at the airlock to greet them personally. The Calaxian's crystalline features seemed different somehow, less rigid, more open. He extended all 4 arms in the traditional greeting of his people. Captain Hyun-woo, Thalvin said, "Welcome to Unity Hall. Welcome to the Concordat. We have much to discuss." They walked through the station together. The changes were evident everywhere. The old council chamber with its hierarchical seating had been replaced by a circular arrangement where every species sat as equals. The administrative offices that had once housed a bloated bureaucracy were now smaller, more focused on coordination than control. "You taught us something important," Thalvin said as they walked. "You taught us that no is a complete sentence. That respect means accepting refusal without punishment. That true cooperation must be voluntary or it means nothing." Hyun-woo nodded. "And you have changed. The galaxy has changed. Tell me, how many species are part of the Concordat?" 42, Thalvin replied. 7 fewer than the old council. 5 species chose to leave entirely and remain independent. We respect that choice now. We trade with them. We cooperate with them. But we do not pressure them to join. They entered the main assembly hall. Representatives from 42 species filled the space. As Hyun-woo entered, they all rose. Not in submission, but in respect. A gesture acknowledging that humanity had stood firm when no one else would. That their refusal had sparked the revolution that freed them all. Ambassador Insu was waiting inside. She was Earth's first official galactic representative, a former philosopher and negotiator chosen for her wisdom and patience. She would lead the human delegation in these crucial early days of the Concordat. President Kang had sent specific instructions. Earth would participate as equals. They would help build this new order, but they would never try to dominate it. The goal was true voluntary cooperation, and that meant respecting every voice equally. The assembly began. Talvin, now serving as coordinator rather than controller, called the session to order. We are here to finalize the constitutional framework of the Concordat. Ambassador Insu of Earth has been invited to present humanity's thoughts on the founding principles. Insu stood and moved to the center of the circle. She looked around at the assembled species. Aliens of every shape and size, beings from worlds she had only dreamed of seeing, and they were all listening. We join you today as founding members of the Concordat, she began. But we must be clear about our conditions. We join as equals or not at all. Every species here must have the same right we claimed 1 year ago. The right to say no. The right to refuse. The right to maintain full sovereignty even within this alliance. There was no objection. The assembled species had learned this lesson well. We propose the following principles, Insu continued. First, membership is voluntary and can be ended at any time without penalty. Second, no member may pressure another to join or remain. Third, all decisions require consensus, not majority rule. Fourth, trade and cooperation do not depend on membership. Fifth, sovereignty is absolute and cannot be surrendered. Historian Kethral stood. The ancient Vornathi had become a powerful voice for reform. I support these principles. They align with what the Council was supposed to be at its founding, 10,000 years ago. We lost our way. Humanity showed us the path back. Merchant Lord Quix also stood. I support this as well. My trading networks have flourished under the new system. Fair trade between equals is more profitable than exploitative relationships disguised as aid. Everyone benefits when cooperation is genuine. Young Krev, nephew of the disgraced General Court, stood next. He represented the new generation of his species. My uncle thought strength meant forcing others to obey. But I have studied human history. Real strength is standing alone when you must. Real courage is refusing to compromise your principles even when threatened. I support these proposals. One by one, each species endorsed the framework. Some added suggestions. Others requested clarifications. But the core principles remained. This would be an alliance of truly equal partners. No hierarchy! No coercion. Just cooperation by choice. Dr. Mi Young, Earth's representative on the Scientific Council, presented humanity's first gift to the Concordat. The completed cure for the Vornathi genetic plague. Developed through human Vornathi cooperation, it represented what partnership between equals could achieve. This is what we can accomplish together, Dr. Mi Young said, not because we have to, not because we are forced to, but because we choose to work together for the common good. This cure is freely shared with all species. No payment required, no political favors expected. It is given in the spirit of genuine cooperation. The Vornathi delegation wept openly. Their species had been dying slowly for generations. Now hope, life, a future, and all because one species had refused to play by the old rules and inspired others to demand better. The Constitutional Convention continued for weeks. Debates happened. Disagreements emerged. But they were resolved through discussion, not power plays. The new Concordat was taking shape, built on principles that humanity had demanded and the galaxy had embraced. Minister Bo-Ra Lee visited Unity Hall during the final week. She walked through the station with Thalvin discussing the future. Do you regret it? She asked him. The old council gave you power, position, authority. This new system makes you just one voice among many. Thalvin's crystalline features shifted in what humans had learned was a smile. I regret that it took your refusal to show us the truth, but I do not regret the change. Power without legitimacy is meaningless. The old council had power, but we had lost the moral authority that comes from true consent. Now we are rebuilding that authority through genuine cooperation. Back on Earth, Admiral Dae-Hyun Park began the process of integrating Sol Defense Forces with the Concordat security framework, but the terms were clear. Human ships would remain under human command. They would cooperate with Concordat forces, but Earth would never surrender military control to anyone else. Other species adopted similar policies. The days of a unified council fleet that could pressure members into compliance were over. Each species maintained their own defenses. They cooperated by choice, not obligation. Engineer Taemin Cho shared human technology with the Concordat Research Initiative. Not everything. Some things remained classified, but enough to show good faith. In return, other species shared their knowledge freely. Scientific progress accelerated across the galaxy as information flowed between equals rather than being hoarded by a central authority. Commander Ji Woo, now promoted to Admiral, prepared for humanity's first joint exploration mission with other Concordat species. Her ship, the New Horizon, would carry a mixed crew, humans and aliens working together, not because they had to, but because they wanted to explore the unknown regions beyond charted space. Thalvin joined the crew as a cultural liaison, the former council ambassador who had been so frustrated by human refusal, now worked alongside them as a friend and equal. As the ship prepared to depart, he stood on the bridge next to Admiral Ji Woo. "Ready to see what is out there?" she asked him. "Together?" Thalvin's features shifted into that smile again. "On human terms and ours and everyone else's, as equals. As it should be." The ship engaged its faster-than-light drive, carrying not just two species but the promise of a new era. An era where cooperation was chosen, not forced. Where sovereignty was respected, not surrendered. Where every species could stand as equals among the stars. Far across the galaxy, independent species that had never joined the old council watched these developments with interest. Some began reaching out to the Concordat. Others contacted Earth directly. The new model was spreading. A galaxy built on respect rather than control. President Kang addressed the Global Assembly one final time before stepping down from office. "1 year ago, we made the hardest choice of our existence as a species. We stood alone. We refused to bend. We risked everything to maintain our sovereignty. Today, we stand as founders of something new. Something better. We did not just win our independence. We sparked a revolution that freed the galaxy." She paused, looking at the faces of humanity's representatives. "But our work is not finished. We must remain vigilant. We must never allow the Concordat to drift into the same patterns that corrupted the old council. We must always remember that the most important word in any alliance is no. The right to refuse is the foundation of all real freedom. Never forget that. Never compromise on that, and never be afraid to."